Hi everyone, good afternoon. It is Sarah Shipton here from Scrapbooking with Sarah, and I'm coming live to you today on Tuesday, March 18 for this week's Technique Tuesday class. I'm running a little later than normal today. I've had some deadlines that I've needed to meet this afternoon, so we have got all of that completed, and I'm coming here live to you today to show you the super cool Soft Waves 3D embossing folder. So I'm super excited to share with you. Hi Rose, how are you? Thanks so much for joining me live this afternoon, or should I say this evening. Hi, because it is almost dinner time. So I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder if I will catch some of you live this afternoon, given that some of you might be in the kitchen cooking dinner. So for those of you that follow me on the socials, you would know that I have been in Brisbane participating in my very first Stampin' Up convention called On Stage, which was so much fun. We had the best weekend. We had 3 days, Thursday, Friday and Saturday, where we got to launch the new 2025 to 2026 April 2026 annual catalogue. I can show you the cover, but I can't show you the inside of the book. So that is the cover of the annual catalogue. This is going to go live to you as customers on May 6 here in Australia. And if you are a demonstrator watching this video in my team, then we will get access to a very special pre-order period from next week on Tuesday, March 25. So if you have been thinking about joining my Stampin' Up family, if you were following me over the weekend and could see how much fun we were having, and you want literally several weeks early access to the new annual catalogue, you have to join my team, guys. I would love to have you in my Stampin' Up team. And we have a pre-order period, so we get to get our hands on the product. First and foremost, there's got to be some perks for being a demonstrator, right? So if you are interested in being part of my Stampin' Up family, I would love to chat with you. Just send me a message. We can make a time to catch up, or you can just head to my website, scrapbookingwithsarahshipton.stampinup.net, and hit the join button and follow the prompts. So this week's scrapbooking challenge, I have taken a pattern from the Make It From Your Heart Volume 1 How-To Pattern Book. We are working with pattern number 6, which is on pages 16 and 17 of your How-To Pattern Book. If you are in my Facebook group, I have loaded the photos in our Facebook group. Hi, Doreen. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Actually, Doreen, I was meaning to send you a message. I saw you just did an order online. Thank you so much for your order. I really appreciate that. Now, pattern number 6 is a double page layout. And what I have done here is used the grey granite cardstock as my basis for my double page scrapbooking layout. And then for my papers, I've actually used some of the remaining papers from my everyday You and Me scrapbooking workshop kit. Look, girls, I do not have much left at all, but I had enough here to cut up these squares using this leftover paper. I've also used some paper from the Everyday You and Me, or Everyday Happiness, I should say, Designer Series paper pack, using this pattern here. And this paper here was also from the Everyday Happiness Designer Series paper pack. And I have used some cardstock through here. So this is Pretty Peacock cardstock. And I'm going to be demonstrating the Soft Waves 3D embossing folder to you this evening. Hi, Emily. Thanks so much for joining us. It's great to see you live this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to be demonstrating the Soft Waves 3D embossing folder in my live video today. And I've also used some of the Mossy Meadow cardstock. This is the two-tone cardstock. I wanted to bring in some of the green and blues here to go with my photos. And I have used the Very Vanilla for my journaling box. And then I've ruled my lines at 1/4 of an inch and done the journaling through there. Now, I have used an older fine tip pen to do the journaling because I had quite a story that I wanted to share with this scrapbooking layout. As you can see, we've got my title through here, Chandra Villas, Bali. And just a little bit of a story on these photos. I'm going to take this out of the memory protector and give you a close-up look at the 3D embossing folder. But just a little bit of a background story about the photos that I'm sharing with you here this evening. These were taken in 2022. Jai was in year 12 at Sacred Heart. And in 2022, Kayla and Jai were both celebrating their 21st and 18th birthdays respectively. And so their birthdays are only 6 weeks apart, 3 years and 6 weeks apart. So I timed that well, didn't I, girls, having a 21st birthday and an 18th birthday so closely together. And this was actually their birthday present. We took a trip to Bali, and in 2020, I earned an incentive trip with the previous paper crafting company that I was a consultant for, close to my heart. And we were meant to take a trip to Fiji, and unfortunately could not go on the trip due to COVID. And close to my heart, very generously gave us travel credits to use with a travel company here in Australia. And so we had a timeline of when we had to use those travel credits by. So I put it forward to the kids and I said, you know what, let's not worry about Fiji, let's go somewhere else. And we will do it for your 21st and 18th birthdays. And they chose Bali. So this was the first time that the kids had been to Bali. And in fact, the first time that Darren and I had been to Bali, we'd been to Indonesia, but not to Bali. And so this was our first trip. And we stayed in these beautiful villas. We actually surprised the kids, and we were booked in. They thought we were booked in to stay in a 2-bedroom villa, but we upgraded to a 3-bedroom villa, and we surprised them. This was on the day that we arrived at the villas, and we walked in. And so I love to take photos before, we mess it up and it looks like we're totally living there for the week. And so it was just a really great surprise and a really memorable moment, just seeing the look on their faces when we walked in. And we had a little welcome drink and a snack on arrival with our beautiful hosts. And then they got to take a tour, and they realized they had their own bedroom each with their own beautiful private outdoor bathroom, which was just lovely. This was mine and Darren's bedroom here. And then we had like these outdoor bathrooms that had baths and showers. There was also bathrooms inside. We had this gorgeous little Balinese hut at the end of our pool. This was the view from the end of the villa, looking into the living area here and the kitchen and dining area. This was at the other end, looking back. This was Jai's villa bedroom here, and Kayla's here, and mine and Darren's was just down the end there. So we had a beautiful stay there and had the best time ever. And villa life is definitely the way to go. Let me tell you guys, I loved it. So let's talk about the pattern that we are creating today. I've got my grey granite 2 base scrapbook pages. We have also got some 3x3 inch squares that you're going to be cutting here for the pattern. So you'll need 1 sheet of paper or cardstock. You could use pattern paper or cardstock to cut your 3x3 inch squares. And then you're going to need another sheet of paper to cut a 2-inch strip down the side here. That also coordinates with some 3x3 inch squares. And then you're going to need another sheet of either pattern paper or cardstock. And this is going to be for your pieces of paper that run along the outside here. Now, these ones I matched up with the green cardstock. I really wanted to tie in some green, so I've actually cut this separate with the green just to bring in some of the greenery there. And then you're going to use now this is K and G. Okay, so K is this strip of paper that runs on the outside right hand. I actually flipped mine around, so I've got my title at the top. I've actually done my layout more like this pattern here. So I've got my title running along the top here. So these 2 pieces are actually the top. And then that means I've switched this around. So my journaling box and my paper strip are on the left-hand side. and then the other paper strip on the right hand side, and then I've opted for my photos also down the right hand side. So basically with the pattern, and just flipped it so it looks like this picture here. The thing I love about the how-to patterns is that you really can take any sheets of paper or cardstock that you've got at home, and you can recreate a pattern again and again, and you can switch things around. You can even rotate the pattern so it is running the opposite way if that better suits your photo orientation as well. The only thing I didn't do, I didn't cut pieces of paper F, G, and N and M. I didn't cut those 4 bits of paper there. So you can omit those if you don't wish to use them. And then you'll need one other sheet of either cardstock or pattern paper, and that's going to be for your title. So just giving you a close-up look, this is where I've used the Soft Waves 3D embossing folder, and also to make my title. Now, the title that I have made is using an old alphabet set that I had during my time as a close to my heart maker. So I wanted something a little bit thicker and solid, as opposed to the beautiful alpha set that I've used many times on my scrapbook layouts. This is the alphabet a la mode dies. And then there's another alphabet die set that Stampin' Up! Have that's a little bit smaller, but I wanted quite a large title to run all the way through here as well. And so this will be my first double page spread of us arriving at our villas and settling in. So I really wanted a title that was quite big and that would stand out. As you can see, I have used the Everyday You and Me stamp set. This is a photopolymer stamp set. And I have also used the coordinating dies as well. So if you watched my video from last week, you will know that I actually did pre-stamp and pre-cut a whole heap of different images from the Everyday You and Me stamp set. So this comes as a bundle with the stamp and the die together. You actually get a 10% discount if you purchase the stamp and the die as a bundle together. You can buy the stamp set on its own. And then you can also buy the dies on its own. So that is an option there for you. But I went with the bundle because I know that this is a stamp and die set that I will use quite a lot in my scrapbooking, given that the images are much larger. And we have a lot of outdoors photos from traveling or walking. And obviously this looks more like a rose, and there's not really roses in Bali, mostly frangipanis and ferns, but it doesn't make my scrapbook layout look any less or feel any less because I've used that style of flower instead of like a frangipani or a more tropical flower. There are certainly tropical type flower stamps and dies available on my website, so you could head to my website and the Shop Now tab. There's a search function. You could literally just type in like tropical, and then basically everything that sort of is themed with that will pop up. So I opted to use the Everyday You and Me stamp and die set because this coordinated with the papers. It is a complementary product. So I have created some embellishment clusters here and here using my pre-stamped and pre-cut images. And then I have also used, I still have die cuts left over from my Everyday You and Me scrapbooking workshop kit. So in the video that I did the first week of March, you can watch the replay of that on my YouTube channel. I actually demonstrated using the Pecan Pie classic Stampin' Pad and the blending brushes, and we just ink blended over the top of the die cuts. So I had some of those all there ready to go. And then I've just popped my stamped images up using some Stampin' Dimensionals, which are one of my favorite adhesives to use. I stick all of my papers and my photos down using my Stampin' Seal because there are 2 types of adhesives, and I prefer the Stampin' Seal over the Stampin' Seal Plus because this is more repositionable as a scrapbooking adhesive as opposed to the Stampin' Seal Plus. And then with my title, Chandra Villas Bali, which I have cut out using the Very Vanilla cardstock, Now, the Very Vanilla cardstock, if you are a big fan of Very Vanilla, you can purchase a whole 12 pack of Very Vanilla. I'll put links to all of the products that I'm sharing with you today in the comment section afterwards. But I also invested in a packet of the Everyday You and Me 12 by 12 two-tone cardstock. So the two-tone cardstock has got Very Vanilla, Pecan Pie, Mossy Meadow, Lost Lagoon, and then also Pretty Peacock. And just to show you a comparison of the cardstock there, this is my darker side of the two-tone and this is the lighter side of the two-tone. So I do like to invest in the coordinating two-tone cardstock, especially because some of these colours were not yet available in a whole 12 pack. So you're not going to have all of the Stampin' Up! Colours available in a 12 pack until May 6 when the annual catalogue goes live. But if you invest in the two-tone cardstock packs that complement the paper suite, you then get an assortment of the two-tone Stampin' Up! Colours in the cardstock pack, which is great. So that's why I decided to invest in those. But yes, if you are a big fan of the Very Vanilla, getting a 12 pack of that would be great. And the Stampin' Up! Cardstock is also much thicker than the two-tone cardstock as well, okay? So the two-tone cardstock gives you lots of different creative options and some variety, whereas the Stampin' Up! Plain colour cardstock is much thicker. So, and great to use for card bases. So I'm just going to demonstrate the 3D embossing folder to you now. I have used the Pretty Peacock. I've got some of the two-tone cardstock here. So you can see you've got your darker side and then the lighter side is just a lighter tone of the original colour. I'm going to use my paper trimmer to cut this paper at 6 by 6 inches. So I've got my Stampin' Up! Trimmer here. I'm just lifting my trimmer guard up. I'm going to pop my cardstock in and underneath my trimmer rail. Now the great thing with the Stampin' Up! Trimmer is that you've got both imperial and metric measurements on your trimmer. The inches are the second lot of measurements that run through the bottom here. So whilst we don't work in inches with our measurements in Australia, we do with scrapbooking. So I'm going to cut this at 6 by 6 inches. I'm just lining this up at the 6. You want to make sure that your cardstock is flush up against the top of your paper trimmer here. You're going to just pop your trimmer guard down, holding your left hand if you're left-handed on here, and then using the oh my gosh, blade. The trimmer blade. You can slice your paper from the top down or from the down up, okay? So I've cut my paper at 6 inches. When you pop your trimmer guard down, it is going to lock into place. I was very used to lifting my trimmer at this lip here, but you'll need to lift it from either the top to open this or from the bottom of the trimmer here, because it's kind of like a little anti-locking guard, okay? So we're going to lift that up. I'm going to turn this on the side. I'm going to line this up at 6 inches again, and then we are going to cut that at 6 inches, and that's giving me a 6 by 6 inch piece of cardstock that I'm going to demonstrate the Softways 3D embossing folder to you. Now, here is one I prepared earlier. I had this on display at my open house. Let's actually talk about the embossing folder first of all. Now, when I transitioned over to Stampin' Up!, I had not used a 3D embossing folder before. All of the embossing folders I had used before were just a standard embossing folder. So depending on your die cutting and embossing machine, I invested in the new Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I love it. This is the third die cutting and embossing machine I've invested in the last 11 years, and hands down this is my favorite machine to use. I'm also going to give you a little bit of an insider tip that there is going to be a price increase on this machine on May 6th. So my suggestion to you is that if you've not yet invested in your Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine, there is going to be a small price rise on that. You might want to consider investing in that machine before the price rise on May 6th, okay? So when you invest in your Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine, it comes with all of your plates that you need, and you can also then buy replacement cutting plates to do your die cutting with. We are going to use the base number 1, and then because we're using a 3D embossing folder, the only other plate I need is plate number 4. This is not for cutting, it's specifically for 3D embossing folders. The other thing I love about my Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine is that you will see the instructions on the front of your mat, so you never have to refer to the instructional manual in the box, which I did actually keep. I love reading fine print, girls, so I did keep that, but the instructions are here. So we're using it with 3D embossing folder. I only need plate number 1 and plate number 4. As I mentioned before, I had not worked with 3D embossing folders before, and basically what this means is the embossing folder is just thicker than a standard embossing folder, and I do really love that because I feel like it just gives a really nice, solid, deep emboss on your cardstock, okay, as you can see here. The thing I also love about using embossing folders, I just love the texture. I love running my hands, you know, over, like when I'm looking through someone's scrapbook album, I'll be like, you know, feeling the papers and the stickers, and obviously it's in a memory protector, but you'd be surprised, you can still feel some of that texture through the memory protector, but I just love the look of it. Like I just want to touch it. I love texture in my scrapbooking. So this is one that I cut for my open house, and I decided to use the Soft Waves embossing folder because it's actually in the January mini catalogue. This finishes on April 30, but the 3D embossing folder is actually part of the Friends of the Ocean suite collection, where you can see all of these beautiful colours here. There's not a scrapbooking workshop kit that coordinates with this suite. So I have literally just invested in the papers and the cardstock colours here. And then also these super cute little sunny day iridescent dots. And I went for the embossing folder because we love the beach, we love the water, we love swimming, we have a swimming pool, and so a lot of my photos have those beach or poolside scenes in them. I know that this is an embossing folder that I'm going to get a lot of use out of. Okay, so this Soft Waves embossing folder is also going to carry over into the next annual catalogue. So whilst this mini book finishes on April 2025, Stamping Up do carry some of the products from this book forward into the other annual catalogue if it is a much loved product. So I have cut my cardstock down to 6x6. I've got my Soft Waves 3D embossing folder here. I have got my Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine here. You can see with my washi tape on front. I'm just going to pop down the bases of my machine. I've got plate number 1 here ready to rock and roll. And I'm just going to open up my embossing folder and sit my cardstock inside. Now, the thing you want to think about here, you're going to get your embossed look on the top of the cardstock. So if you're using two-tone cardstock, you want to think about which way you want your cardstock up, because you're going to get like a positive and then you're going to get a negative. Okay, now with this particular one, I do feel like the positive is a better vibe for sure with my scrapbooking. So I am going to put this through my embossing machine with the pretty peacock face up. There is a line here as well. So the other thing that I noticed with the 3D embossing folders is that there's no opening for continual feed of cardstock with the embossing folder. So there's a line here. You want to make sure that your cardstock doesn't go over that line, because when I run this through the embossing folder, it's actually not going to emboss past that line. All right, so I've got my cardstock in the embossing folder. I've got plate number 1. A tip I want to give you, which is also on your mat, it says that you're going to insert your embossing folder hinge first. So this is the hinge here where the embossing folder folds. This is open, okay? So we're going to make sure that we run our embossing folder with the hinge facing first and forward. And then I've got my plate number 4. So we're going to make a little sandwich. Our 3D embossing folder is going to go between plate number 1 and plate number 4. We're going to pop that on the base of my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I can just slightly push that in. And using my other hand, I've just rolled the handle so it's picked up my little sandwich. And then I can, with a bit of pressure, just roll that through, and I'm holding the machine at the top, and you can see that this is gliding through really, really easily. So that click is telling me that it has popped all the way through, and this is why I love this machine, because it is so easy to use. It stays nice and sturdy on my bench. It's not moving around. When I open this up, you are going to see the embossing magic, and I promise you, you will want to get every embossing folder there is after this, because I just love it. Does that just not look gorgeous? I feel like this 3D embossing folder as well, look at how well that's come out. Now, this is a two-tone cardstock. This is not the two-tone cardstock. So this color here, oh my gosh, I'm going to test myself. What color is this, Sarah? Let me grab my book, because I did that practice on a Stampin' Up cardstock. So it's just slightly thicker. Melon Mambo. I'm still learning the colors. Thank you so much for your patience with me. So Melon Mambo, I just feel like the two-tone here, because it's a thinner cardstock. Can you see how much of a more like it's a better imprint? Like, I'm trying to think of like the word that I want to use here, but it's just so much more visible on the two-tone cardstock than it is on the Stampin' Up. I mean, they're both Stampin' Up cardstock, but the Stampin' Up cardstock, like just the normal cardstock, is thicker, whereas the two-tone's a little bit thinner. Now, the reason for that being is your two-tone cardstock has a white core. So if I was to tear this cardstock like so, if I tear towards me, I'm going to get the white core this way. If I was to tear away from me, oh, that's giving me the white core as well. Why did I think there was going to be a different, I thought there was like a different, well, why did I think that was going to come out differently? I might have to look back at my creative notes from the weekend on that. But with your two-tone cardstock, obviously if I tear that, you've got a white core. Now, it's basically just white cardstock, and they dye it on one side, and then they dye it a lighter version of the original color on the other side, which is why you've got that white core. Now, the really cool thing about this is if I had like a little piece of sandpaper, as soon as I said that, I was like, oh my gosh, have I got my sandpaper nearby? If you've got like a little piece of sandpaper, like I've got a distressing tool here, so I could distress the edges of my cardstock, and you will see the white core that way. Okay, you just got that nice kind of white core scratch there. Or, oh my gosh, as soon as I said that, I was like, I don't think I've got that handy. I have showed the embossing, oh, hang on, here it is. I have showed the sandpaper effect before. I've got one of my little sandpaper tools here. If I was to sand over the top of that, you can see that the white core of that is going to start to come out, okay? So that's the really cool thing about the two-tone cardstock, and just some different creative options that you've got there. So I'm just going to grab my existing annual catalogue. I'm just going to fold that one up now. I'm just going to grab my existing annual catalogue. And if you're looking for more versatility in terms of designs and patterns for your embossing folders, They are on pages 128 and 129 of your current annual catalogue. You've got the Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine. Another really fun tip, it says here, to ink your folder before running it through the Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine. So that could be super fun. I could have actually put some ink on the inside of my 3D embossing folder and then put my paper on and then ran it through. That could be like a really fun technique to do. And then you just want to wipe that off from the inside to get that excess ink through. There's also hybrid embossing folders. I've sandpapered that to bring out the whiter tone of the cardstock that just gives it a really fun, distressed look. I could also add ink to my paper after doing the embossing as well. And this here shows you all of the different patterns of embossing folders that we have in the range. You'll also find some other embossing folders on my website, some that might be an online exclusive only, so you won't see them in the hard copy version of your catalogue. So if you head to my website, scrapbookingwithsarahshipton.stampandup.net, hit the Shop Now tab, and then when you go to the search function, if you just typed in 3D embossing folder, all of the 3D embossing folders will pop up. In your annual catalogue, I've also highlighted embossing folder number 4 and embossing folder number 11 because these are a larger size embossing folder, but it doesn't indicate that because there's actually no measurements indicating that in the annual catalogue. So embossing folder number 4 and embossing folder number 11 are a larger size embossing folder. And the reason why I started with those 2 embossing folders is because they make great size embossing folders for your scrapbookers. So you can see that this is a 6 by 6 inch, and the larger embossing folders actually measure 6 by 8.5 inches. So a much bigger embossing folder, which are great for the scrapbookers. You've got more paper and a larger size paper that you want to use up on your scrapbooking layout. So I hope those tips today have been beneficial for you with using your 3D embossing folders in your Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine. I also introduced some new embellishments onto my layout today, and these are the Petal Pink and Pretty Peacock foiled gems, and I've just done some of the little Pretty Peacock gems here on my embellishment cluster. Another tip for you in the search function of the Shop Now tab on my website, if you are looking for coordinating embellishments to go with your paper and you really love the colour, for example, Pretty Peacock, you could type in the word Pretty Peacock in the search function, and every product in the Stampin' Up! Range that features that Pretty Peacock colour will come up, and that's how I was able to find these packets of coordinating gems to put on my layout. So that's just a fun little tip there for you, for those of you that love to coordinate your embellishments with your scrapbooking cardstock and papers. Thank you so much for watching today, everyone. Di's joined us towards the end. Hi, Di. Hi, Nicole. How are you, ladies? I hope you've had a great day. Please feel free to watch the playback, and I will upload this to my YouTube channel as well. I can't wait to see what you create this week with our scrapbooking challenge. I'll be here again next Tuesday for Technique Tuesday on the 25th. Bye for now. Have a great week, everyone.